The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Are money-hungry vultures and headline-hungry journalists, certainly not us, circling the Neverland Ranch? Alas, cries Team Jackson, the king of pop never stood a chance. Hello and welcome to E's coverage of the Michael Jackson trial. I'm James Curtis. Ready for another day of hard-hitting testimony, the performer acknowledged his cheering fans as he entered the courthouse in Santa Maria. Inside, Carlos Velasco, son of a longtime Neverland Ranch employee and childhood friend of Jackson's prior alleged victims, one of the five, takes the stand. But did this witness ever see Michael Jackson do anything inappropriate? Under questioning by defense attorney Robert Sanger, here's what the young man said according to the courtroom transcripts.
During the course of the time that you had contact with Neverland Ranch as a guest, did you have occasion to meet a young man named Jason?
Yes, I did.
Did you meet him at the ranch for the first time, or did you meet him someplace else?
It was at the ranch.
And on how many occasions did you see Jason at the ranch?
Quite a few. I mean, especially during family day. About 4 times.
Okay, all right. And did you also get to know Jason outside of Neverland?
Yes, I did.
And how was that?
We went to high school together.
What high school was that?
Santa Maria High School.
All right. Now, during the time that you spent with Jason at the ranch, did you ever see Mr. Jackson there at the same time that you and Jason were there?
Yes.
Did you ever see Mr. Jackson interact with Jason in any inappropriate way whatsoever?
No.
What kind of a relationship did Mr. seem to have? And at the time, I guess he was younger, but we'll call him Jason. What kind of relationship did Jason have with Mr. Jackson as far as you could tell?
Just a normal one. I mean...
What kind of relationship did you have with Mr. Jackson?
Just a normal one.
So was your relationship any different as far as you could tell from that of Mr.
No, it wasn't.
All right. Now, during the time that you were with Mr. at the ranch and thereafter throughout high school in Santa Maria, did you ever hear Mr. mention in any way anything inappropriate happening with Mr. Jackson?
No.
And during high school, did you consider yourself friends with Jason?
Yes.
Did you hang around with the same circle of friends?
Yes.
But what does this witness really know? On cross-examination, Assistant District Attorney Gordon Auchincloss tries to prove it ain't very much.
Mr. Velasco, have you ever slept with Mr. Jackson?
No, I haven't.
Has that ever occurred to you to sleep with Mr. Jackson?
Never.
Did you ever want to sleep with Mr. Jackson?
No.
Do you believe that child molest victims normally broadcast the fact that they're victims to their high school peers?
Objection, beyond the scope of direct and no foundation.
Sustained.
Your testimony is that you never heard that Jason or Jason never told you that he was molested by Mr. Jackson.
Correct.
You have seen Mr. Jackson interact with Jason, true?
Well, he talked to all of us. It wasn't just specifically him.
Okay. My question was, have you seen Jason interact with Michael Jackson?
Yes.
Jason was a friend of Mr. Jackson's, true?
Yes.
And do you have any idea whatsoever whether Jason was molested by Michael Jackson?
Objection calls for an opinion without foundation beyond the scope of direct.
Overruled. You may answer.
No.
You have no idea. Thank you. No further questions.
All right. Did you see or hear anything that suggested to you in any way that Jason was molested by Michael Jackson?
Never.
Okay, thank you. No further questions?
Howard, I got to go to you as formerly having represented Michael Jackson, having known the accuser that was referred to here, Jason, who you actually heard from in this trial. Give me your assessment.
Well, I think this witness was devastating for both sides. The witness doesn't know anything.
Sides.
Sure, absolutely. The witness doesn't know anything. He has no idea whether Michael Jackson molested Jason, and he never slept with Michael Jackson. Great testimony.
And
but
you know what?
Go ahead.
And as far as I'm concerned, the only question that needed to be asked on cross-examination was, do you have any idea whether or not Michael Jackson molested Jason? That's it.
Well, and it
Sit
brings
down,
us
it's
back
over.
to the fact that it's the defense that called this witness, lest we forget. The defense puts on this witness to say, well, you never saw anything, so therefore there wasn't anything. That's as ridiculous as some of the prosecution witnesses. In this case, if there is a molestation of a child, it is not done in front of another person. A young boy is clearly not going to confess that to his high school friends. It's not something to brag about. And Jason, by his own testimony, didn't talk to anyone about this until recently.
All right, James, more important. Happy birthday, Ricky.
Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday, Ricky. It's
Oh,
Ricky's
thank
birthday.
you.
And she's a little feisty and fired up
I'm
today.
ready to roll.
She's ready to go as we continue. Next witness. His name is David LeGrand. He is a former lawyer for the King of Pop, like our own Howard Weitzman. Defense attorney Tom Mesereau asked this witness about a lawsuit brought by Michael Jackson against journalist Martin Bashir and a United Kingdom, that's Britain for all you other folks, production company called Granada.
And what was Mr. Jackson's legal position, as you understood it, in the lawsuit filed in England?
Well, it'd been a few years. The claims were that Mr. Bashir, and through Mr. Bashir, Granada, misrepresented to Mr. Jackson what they were going to accomplish in this production. Mr. Jackson had told me that Mr. Bashir had promised him the right to screen and edit the final production before it went on to the, on the air.
I'm going to object and move to strike the last sentence as hearsay.
Sustained. It's non-responsive.
When you looked at what you described as a few documents that Mr. Jackson had signed involving the Bashir documentary, do you recall seeing anything about compensation?
I'm not sure if it was in the document or not. Mr. Jackson did not seek compensation for the production, but he did expect a significant donation to a charity.
So basically, Mr. Jackson worked with Mr. Bashir for free, right?
Yes.
And Mr. Bashir and his company were standing to make millions on this show. True?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
To your knowledge, was this documentary distributed around the world?
Yes.
To your knowledge, did Mr. Jackson get anything financially from this distribution around the world?
No.
Objection asked and answered.
Overruled. The answer is in. Next question.
Tell you, there's more lawyers testifying in this case that you see at some bar association meetings. Next, lies and broken promises. Was the King of Pop deceived?
Do you recall what Bashir's position was in that lawsuit? What was he claiming?
Well, I don't know about Bashir. I know that Granada claimed that they owned the copyright. They ultimately did agree not to use the outtakes for a second production. They agreed to veil the faces of the children to do some blurring in the airing of the video to protect Mr. Jackson's family. So there were concessions made by Granada. Their basic position was they owned the copyright and they had the unequivocal right to produce the production without any input or editing from Mr. Jackson.
And without paying Mr. Jackson a penny, right?
Correct.
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
The overall thrust of the case was that Bashir had completely hoodwinked Mr. Jackson, right?
Objection argumentative.
Sustained.
Leading.
Was the thrust of the lawsuit that Mr. Bashir had made numerous misrepresentations to Mr. Jackson about the show?
Yes.
Now, the idea here, Ricky, and I must go to you with respect to the arrangement that Michael Jackson had with Martin Bashir. You've been a journalist longer than I have. You're somebody that I look up to. You've been doing this a long time. This is not an unusual arrangement for the subject of a documentary, one, not to be paid, or two, for all the rights to whatever footage is shot to reside with the production company.
No, you're exactly right. That's, in fact, not what often happens, it's what usually happens. However, we have to understand that Martin Bashir wooed Michael Jackson. This was going to be this video that was going to help set his career back upright. And that ultimately what happened here is that in that wooing, he lured Michael Jackson into a false sense of security, and it appears that in certain ways he took advantage.
Yeah, but I got to ask, Sean Chapman Holly, got to ask, what difference does it make that Martin Bashir may have sucked up to Michael Jackson to get him on tape? So what?
Just
What's
like
on
we all
tape
would have,
is
right?
on tape, and it speaks for itself, doesn't it?
All it does is it fits perfectly into the overriding defense theme, which is that Michael Jackson is the victim here. He's being victimized by everybody. He's this innocent, and even he's taken advantage of by Martin Bashir.
Good point, Sean, but isn't that a dangerous ploy by the defense team?
No, you know what's interesting? First of all, Michael Jackson has great leverage. Appropriate representation gets Michael Jackson whatever he wants to do this video with Martin Bashir.
Okay.
So that's one. two, the judge prevented the defense from cross-examining Bashir when he testified, in
said, look, you can call it yourself.
No, I understand that, but now they got to call him as his own witness, and the judge, I want to say it again, was totally out of line. This is a perfect example of why the judge should have allowed his examination to be like any other examination. There's no yes, James. That's how it should have been.
No, he calls him during the defense case.
All right, we're going to continue and discuss this. And if Michael Jackson, as you say, Howard, can have the best representation, like yourself, why did he sign a one-page, typically almost a one-paragraph agreement with Martin Bashir? Coming up, a $1 million mystery and a missing power player sets off the judge. Stay with us.
The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back. Was Michael Jackson exploited by his closest business associates? Defense attorney Tom Mesereau questioned one of Jackson's former lawyers. He's David LeGrand. He's on the stand right now. LeGrand claims that he became highly suspicious of the pop star's new management team after learning that nearly $1 million went missing. Here's what the jury heard according to the courtroom transcripts.
Why did you think Conitzer and Weisner had diverted $965,000 from Mr. Jackson?
Because the report I got from this other lawyer showed those disbursements.
And when you saw the record of those disbursements, what did you do?
I spoke to several of the other lawyers that were representing Mr. Jackson and agreed that I should write a letter to Mr. Conitzer asking him to account.
Did you ever find out what he had done with the money?
No. I was terminated by Mr. Jackson as counsel within, I don't know, 2 weeks maybe of that letter to Mr. Conitzer.
Do you remember when you were brought in to represent Mr. Jackson, Conitzer and Weisner telling you they intended to gain control of Mr. Jackson's financial affairs?
Yes.
Do you remember at that time Conitzer and Weisner telling you they wanted to gain control of Mr. Jackson's records, documents, and agreements?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
Do you remember when you were brought on board, Conitzer and Weisner telling you they wanted to gain control of anything belonging to Mr. Jackson?
I'll make the same objection and leading.
Overruled.
In general, Mr. Conitzer and Mr. Weisner wanted to take over management, overall management of Michael Jackson's business affairs, financial affairs, and implement a new business plan for Mr. Jackson.
So, is Michael Jackson just playing the blame game? On cross-examination, Assistant District Attorney Gordon Auchincloss wants to know who's really responsible for the king of pop's biggest PR disaster.
Isn't it a fact that the media frenzy, the bulk of this negative public relations disaster, or whatever comes close to a disaster, dealt with Mr. Jackson's admission to the world that he liked to sleep with little boys? That was one of the major outcries. Isn't that fair to say?
I think that's fair to say.
And Martin Bashir did not misrepresent that, did he? Michael Jackson actually said that, and he repeated it, didn't he?
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled.
Yes.
Howard Weitzman, 2 quick points. One, this is a very valid point. These are words out of Michael Jackson's mouth. I sleep with young boys. And is it really of any merit at all that Michael Jackson was seduced, to use a play on words, by Martin Bashir?
Well, yes, it has some value. This isn't the place, however. This is just a redirect examination or recross examination to show that Bashir didn't misrepresent some of what was actually said on the video.
So,
I want to add a point, though, because I think we have to put this whole testimony in context. Mr. LeGrand had an affair with a young woman. Her name was Anne-Marie Kite. She was one of the earliest witnesses in this case.
Number 2, I believe. Yeah.
So we wind up with LeGrand and Michael's people bringing in Anne-Marie Kite, the crisis management expert. And it was a crisis that Michael said that in the Bashir film, because one of the things that Anne-Marie Kite testifies to is that LeGrand told her, the henchman, as it were going to make Janet, Gavin's mother, look like a crack whore.
How can we forget as we move on? Is the king of pop on the verge of bankruptcy?
Well, Didn't you write a letter to Mr. Jackson telling him that he's spending approximately $20,000 more every year than he makes? I should say $20 million more every year than he makes.
Yes.
I have a hard time saying that.
Yeah, I did write a letter. My analysis was more current. I just mean I didn't review his expenses going back for, you know, how the entire $200 million of debt came into existence. That's all I meant.
All right.
Clearly, I was concerned about his current rate of expenditure versus the money he had available to cover those expenses.
And you mentioned in that letter that you perceived Mr. Jackson to be on the verge of bankruptcy unless some action was taken. True?
Yes, that's true.
See, for folks like me, unlike my esteemed panel, they just call it broke. As testimony continues, Assistant District Attorney Gordon Auchincloss questions the lawyer about attempts to broker a deal with the current accuser's mother, remember her name is Janet, after the Bashir documentary aired.
Okay, so you offered Janet money because you wanted Granada censored. Isn't that true?
We wanted to, as a strategic matter, we wanted to maintain both complaints before the Broadcasting Standards Board because we viewed that as a positive leverage in the lawsuit.
Okay, and all positive leverage aside, Janet did not want Michael Jackson's money, did she?
I don't know what Janet did or didn't want.
It was turned down. Your offer was turned down. Isn't that true?
Well, that's true.
Sean speaks for itself. Rep Simpson, baby.
Yeah, well, big deal. The big point of this witness is demonstrating that these other people, these unindicted co-conspirators, had a plan and a scheme all their own. And Michael Jackson was even a victim of their scheme. He's a victim all over the place, and this witness demonstrates that.
But Howard, the fact that she turned down a money offer.
Good question. It does show, for once, that Janet, in that little area of time, may have had some integrity.
See, okay, I want you all to make a mental note. Howard Weitzman gave some credit to a prosecution question.
That's because it's my birthday.
There you go. But it is a fantastic question, and it's a great point.
It is a great point because she has been portrayed not only as the money-hungry one, the grifter, but she's portrayed as the one who masterminded the scheme to get money. Here she doesn't want money.
Yeah, so what does it all mean? Still ahead, high-profile attorney Mark Garagos, MIA, missing in actions, folks, and Judge Melville's harsh warning when we return. Stay with us.
The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back. More lawyers take the stand, or do they? Team Jackson subpoenaed yet another one of Michael Jackson's former attorneys. No, not our own Howard Weitzman, but celebrity attorney Mark Garagos. But he was a no-show, folks, and that, as you can imagine, got the court a little upset. Here's what Judge Rodney Melville told Mark Garagos' surrogate, according to the courtroom transcripts.
As I understand, the subpoena is for tomorrow. So I'll order him to appear here at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow morning in accordance with the subpoena.
Well, may I, if that is what the court is going to do, I mean, I guess I would like to be heard on that and just make it known that Mr. Garagos did have, there was 2 matters scheduled in Van Nuys, one of which is a custody matter. Those matters have been put over numerous times, and there's a preliminary hearing scheduled.
Now, you know how citizens feel in this community and every community in the state when they're called away from their employment by attorneys in courts. Now we have a lawyer who wants special accommodation. The answer is no. He's been subpoenaed. There's no motion to quash. I expect him here at 8:30 tomorrow morning.
Your Honor.
That will give me time to get the warrant out when he doesn't appear. So he'll be here Monday for sure because I expect him to be here tomorrow morning.
Well, I don't mean to ask for special treatment, Your Honor, but what I do want to ask for is professional courtesy. And I think subpoenaing somebody 2 days before they're scheduled to appear is not sufficient notice, particularly given the fact that everyone in this courtroom, I believe, is aware of the fact that Mr. Garagos has been in this trial and has numerous matters scheduled. So I'm not I don't mean...
We're aware, you know, that he's a very busy attorney. It's the same with any citizen who's subpoenaed.
Oh, my goodness.
Yikes.
Now, I don't know if you all have ever been on the fuzzy end of a judge's admonition.
Yes.
Everybody raise your hand. It ain't fun, is it?
I've gone through the side door on occasion.
And that followed
But
by...
not overnight.
Mr. Curtis, take out your checkbook when the judge wants to fine you for something
However,
bad.
this judge, I know you all don't like when I criticize this judge, is dead wrong in my opinion.
Why?
Because you don't serve somebody with a subpoena, especially somebody who is in the business and has a schedule like Garagos has, regardless of what you might think of him, 2 days before.
Okay, that's a good
he's
point.
due in court.
Yeah, but that's the problem. Mesereau, I assume, is the person. It's a defense subpoena. So.
I know, but why would he take it out on Garagos? And the bias oozes out of the word.
Well, first of all, let me make a note, folks. We have yet another criticism. This is two in one day, count them, of the defense team, because the defense team, Sean Chapman-Holly, is one who served this last-minute subpoena.
Yes, yes. But you know what this really demonstrates, I think, that the court is not pleased with Mr. Garagos. And as we know, Mr. Garagos was the attorney for Mr. Jackson, and we wonder what went on there, because the court is not pleased with him at all.
So where are we leaving? Let's wrap it up, folks. Where are we at right now?
Can I say one thing before, Ricky? Happy birthday again. We criticize any side.
Yeah.
We just don't criticize the prosecution. So far, I think the defense has had the better end. But you know what? We got another 8 to 10 weeks to go.
I still think that the case is inside out. I think that the prosecution witnesses were better for the defense, and many of the defense witnesses are better for the prosecution.
You agree? Really quick? Yes?
Yeah,
No?
it's Ricky's birthday. I agree.
All right. He arrived in Santa Maria without makeup, without a publicist, without a script. Macaulay Culkin takes the stand with surprising new testimony you didn't see. It's tomorrow, 10 a.m., 4 p.m. Where? Only on 8.